Narthaki Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I'm Anita Ratnam, and the discussions and observations are about what's happening with Indian dance globally, its ecosystem, and its many intersections. Today in the studio, my special guest is Hrishikesh Pawar. Now, he is a professional dancer from Pune. But what interested me about Hrishikesh is not just that he's a first generation professional dancer in his family and that he's a Kathak practitioner who then transitioned into contemporary dance, but his passion, no, I have to say his obsession with dance as a medium for social change and the outreach that he does that impacts clusters and communities that many ignore and many of us perhaps prefer to make invisible. Now, he will share with us in today's discussion his continuing engagement with people affected with Parkinson's and other communities and how these interactions actually help his dance students. Hrishikesh, welcome. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to a very exciting conversation with you, sharing our stories, because one thing that binds us together is the love of dance and how we expand it and keep it fresh. So thank you very much for having me.
So just take me back to the moment you were in school and you saw this veteran Kathak dancer, Rohini Bhate, dance, and something happened to you.
I fell in love. I fell in love, and I just knew that I belonged to Kathak as a dance form. And I think stage as a medium happened much later, but I just knew that movement was my thing and the shape of the movement had to look somewhat like Kathak. And Rohini Tai has been a very, very influential figure right from the day I saw her on stage up until knowing what the form was or what dance needs to do in the society. So I think a lot of that comes from, a lot of my understanding actually stems out of my knowing her for a little time. So yes.
What was it about the form in Kathak that inspired you? You know, you're a man dancing Kathak, where traditionally the gurus were male and the performers were female. So what was it about the form that perhaps evoked something from inside of you?
I think the footwork, the spins, but yet the grace that maintained and glued everything together. So as a man, when I stepped into training myself, it made me feel even more masculine because I was aware that I was dancing against 20 girls. And it didn't take me time to kind of differentiate between being effeminate and being graceful. But the power still had to be there. So visually, I visualized myself to be this powerful body which was moving. And that has remained up until now. So I think it was all of that that made my identity a little more stronger visually for me and helped me connect to Kathak as a practitioner much more effectively later in my growing up days. So I think that's what I think Kathak just gave me a definition of who I was really, or how should I see myself.
And yet it was not quite enough. You moved into contemporary dance.
Yes.
So was that a gradual decision? Was it organic, or was it something that came out of some kind of restlessness?
So coming from a non-artsy background myself, I think there was all the conversations were going on a faded year when I would tell my parents that, you know, this is what I saw, this is what I experienced, this is what I'd like, this is where I'd like to go to watch a performance. And they'd be like, bare, kara, but abhyas karaycha hai. You have to go and study. So I think, having said that, it took me a while to understand what the form was. And as I was growing up in a boys' school, it became even more difficult to kind of go against my friends who would not take me to play because, you know, I was dancing Kathak, which is a feminine style. You were wearing ankle belts. So I was not man enough to play football or basketball. Or they would say, oh, you can't run because you're a dancer or whatever. So, and what happened in the classes was that because there were few male Kathak dancers, the repertory revolved around a lot of girls, and you would end up becoming a Krishna or a Ravan or a Ram or whatever. And that up until a point was exciting. But then I started questioning that, and I really wanted to break out of that kind of a box that was created through the education and through the opportunities. And that's when I saw a German movie called I Will Not Dance Heppen Beautiful, Ich will nicht hübsch und lieblich tanzen, which is about Great Palooka and the east of Germany, and how between the World War One and World War Two, dancing was such a powerful medium where all the Jew women had taken up dancing and how they were revolting against a system,
Form of resistance.
form of resistance, just to be able to express. So the form, if you see the German art form, it's not very beautiful for that period, but it's very, very expressive and honest. And I thought, going from a classical stream, which is all about looking upwards and inwards and finding the God, this was very bare, authentic, very raw for my taste. So I
In the
thought this is
now.
what I'd like to do. And I also wanted to take the idea of just holding my body and just moving into a space and giving myself that kind of a freedom. So I think that's where contemporary dance was introduced to me. Yeah.
And then in 2004 in London, something else happened. And tell us about that.
So Mark Morris Dance Group, which is one of the prominent dance companies in the US, in New York, was touring, and they came up with a production to London. But in the afternoon, they had invited dancers to have a look at their community work, and the community work was Dance for PD, where they had invited senior citizens with Parkinsons to kind of come and do a workshop and a dance class, which was very, very fascinating. As a young practicing dancer, saying, why would here we are trying to get a technique right, and here is this company which is invested in looking at senior citizens and what kind of spaces can dance create. And I think that thought lingered for a long time for me as an experience, saying that this is exciting. What would it mean to work with a senior citizen, and what does a Parkinson disease patient mean to me at that point of time? Because there was no relevance. I had nobody in my family, I had no relatives who were suffering with Parkinson's, but the hook was only that particular workshop that just glued us together. And for the first time, I, again, after a long gap, saw movements just for the joy of it, and that was exciting for me to watch in London.
So from 2004, when you say the thought lingered and you came back to Pune, and if the thought doesn't leave you, it means you have to do something with it. Yes. So what were your first tentative steps at using your dance training, your background with Parkinson's? Because Parkinson's, if many of you may know or may not know, it's a condition that affects from the brain, it affects your movement and motor capabilities. And the first manifestation of the what you can see is tremors, right? And it is it a degenerative disease? Like it can be slowed but not arrested,
cured.
Not cured. So tell us about your early steps.
I think when you're young, everything seems to be exciting. So after having a foray in the European dance scene, I was back in Pune wanting to create things, wanting to be a contemporary dancer, teaching. It really, I think that excitement really pushed me to hold the space together and create spaces that were allowing contemporary dance to move. So one of the community spaces that we started was our work with the Parkinsons members at the Sancheti Hospital, because I had seen one workshop and afterwards never had the time to really find out what Parkinson's really means. It kind of took me a while to sit with the doctors, sit with their OPDs and look at how they were dealing with patients. What does it mean when I say a body has involuntary movements? And then you realize that, oh, there's Parkinson's that kind of is identified with tremors or stiffness, or there is something called Parkinsonism, which may also have similar symptoms. What are the kind of medications? What is the kind of rehab that is available apart from physiotherapy? Studying the disease really sort of created yet another exciting corner to just see what your body can do with your brain not working with movements. And as a dancer, I think we need balance, we need coordination, we need remembrance, a muscle memory to kind of remember the choreography, and we need the joy. Everything that I've just shared is missing in a Parkinson patient. So how do we get that back? What is the kind of mobility that they need to do? What are the kind of repetitions which will make the work effective and release their muscles to just to function normally, whatever that would mean? And how do you negotiate movements which will not intimidate them at all? It's really like teaching a class to a young dancer who has the dreams of moving, and what do you give them as a choreographic material to work with? And I think the Parkinson's work really helped me reflect on my pedagogical practices that I was simultaneously doing in Pune. To go back to the studio, to be present, to be on time, to be also accountable to what was happening. And I think I started looking at girls and boys who were learning with me at that point of time very, very mindfully in that sense, because here I was looking at somebody who's even making an effort to walk, and here we are already in the studio. So how effective can this exchange happen for us and still be nourishing at the same time? So I think that's how the Parkinson's work really came about.
What would be the first exercise that you would suggest when you meet somebody new
New.
in the Parkinson's space?
One is to be able to sit down nicely and just let them know that they're in a dance class. They've not gone to a physiotherapy clinic. They're not meeting an orthopedic surgeon. So the fact that they have to sit correctly in a posture, that itself allows them to feel different, because the doctor doesn't correct your posture, right? He says, yeah, come sit and tell me what is happening. Here I'm saying, okay, let's look at our limbs. And the only movement we do is a hand going up and down. That's all that we want them to do, just to experience that, okay, if one hand is going down, one hand is coming up, there's a movement to it. And now let's create a pattern. So I think they take back that, saying, okay, I can do it. Even if even if the movement is not complete, like even if it's not going up to my arm, even if it's a half movement, I'm able to do that. And I think that becomes a hook for them to go back into the dance class over and over again.
And you call them dancers and not patients?
Yes. Because they perform. They are in an audience sharing their stories like any other performer does. And they take as much efforts that any other regular dancer would do. So why not call them that?
Are they all of a particular age group, or do you have some younger people with this condition as well?
So we have somebody who is as young as 50, and we have somebody as old as 91. And that's the kind of the group dynamics is really, really big. And it's very exciting to see a 50-year-old versus an 80-year-old, because you see how a body is going to age, and it ages right in front of you. So that becomes very exciting choreographically for me. If I were to put myself away and say, now, here's a group of people you have to work with. So that visual already becomes very exciting for me. And the younger ones, I think, take a longer time to accept that they have Parkinson's. Than the older ones who are, let's say, in their 60s or in their 70s. I think they accept it a little more faster.
So tell me one sort of emotional moment for you. Somebody you worked with and somebody who just performed fabulously, or, something that brought tears to your eyes or made you break down. Just one. I'm sure there's are many, so many, but there's something that comes to your mind.
I think they've been so the thing is that if you've met a Parkinson patient, you'll realize that their body through the day works very, very differently. So there are days when their bodies are very normal, and then there are days when their body completely freezes or will not respond to any sort of outer inputs. We've had performances where people have had a fall in the afternoon in their bathrooms while either taking a shower or getting ready, or having fever or not sleeping the night before, but they have still showed up for the performance with the swelling, with the band-aids, with you name it, and we've seen them come through. And I think that's very exciting. That's so assuring to know that the space is so important, and it means there's a sense of commitment. And I think it's a wonderful lesson for all young dancers to see how committed these people are, because the space is so important for them. And I think that's what I wanted to sort of share with my younger dancers as well. We've had one incident where the body was just not doing well. We were traveling to Bombay, and this particular dancer was constantly freezing. And when we were on stage, he was the first one to jump and walk and skip and come there. And we were losing our heartbeats, because we were like, and through the whole Bombay journey, he was with his walker and we didn't know what happened, but he could pull the whole 20 minutes of performance, traveling, changing of costumes, everything. It was a miracle. Just to share the latest, actually, this is the latest now. And what has happened is that for these senior citizens, this has become an advocacy now. So instead of sitting at home and saying, "Oh, I have Parkinson's," they have a voice and a space where they say, "Hey, I have Parkinson's. This is how I'm dealing with." I think the lack of knowledge creates a big elephant about the disease. Um, the earlier identified, the earlier cure, the earlier medication really helps you kind of sustain and become and live a little healthier life than holding on to it and saying, okay, now my life is at the end, you know. So we've also had that sort of a heroic platform, I would say, where the I think the reward is where our participants now go and talk to other people saying, okay, these are the life changes we've made and this is how my life is right now. We have people who take public transports. And I'm mentioning this here because public transport in India is as good as an adventure. So changing buses, getting an Uber, for example, or working with fingers that have no control at all is quite difficult for a lot of them. But they still end up doing that. So that gives them a confidence of being self-sufficient and not being dependent. So they can go out, they can do their own things, they can meet their friends. They are not ashamed of the fact that people observe when there's a tremor happening. They're a little more authoritative in their presence now publicly, and that has engaged a lot with their social life as well. You know, the family members get together, we get stories of how they were very happy to meet everybody, you know, and things like that. So I think that's very exciting.
And you're doing all this under the umbrella of the Avartan Dance Foundation, right? And I want you to go back and tell me how it impacts your dance students when they come and work with you with Parkinson's and other communities, which we will come to talk about, but the effect it's having on your dance students.
I think when I started the dance school, the whole idea was to teach young people dancing. And I was not teaching Bollywood. I was not teaching classical. I was somewhere in between.
This is the Center of Contemporary Dance.
This is the Center of Contemporary
COCD.
Dance, COCD. And so I think the phenomenon itself was so new, where I was only talking about techniques and not a choreography per se. And then I had issues with people saying yes, committing to something and then forfeiting it right at the moment. I also was at a point where I was questioning what my ability is as a dancer, what validates my work, how do I feel accepted, what does it mean when I've left Europe and I've come to Pune in like a very uptight classical sort of a dance scene. So what happened with the community work was we could talk about compassion, we could talk about team, we could talk about holding each other, we could talk about leadership. We could also talk about just the joy of movements first.
And commitment.
And commitment. Because, for example, our Parkinson's class starts at 4 o'clock, 4:30. If I tell somebody that the class is starting at 4:30, you'll have invariable dancers who will walk in at 4:30 and not be ready at 4:30. Now, because there's a senior citizens group which has to be ready by 4:30, all my dancers have to be there by 4:10, 4:15, at least 15 minutes before hand so that they're prepared and, you know, they're there, they've changed, they've kept the music ready. And at 4:35, the class has to start, come what may. They also have a body of commitment which is not functioning well. And they are also managing to come to the studio. So what is your problem now, you know? And you've committed to the idea of wanting to be a dancer. So I think a lot of these conversations started happening, which were very integral to the philosophy in which I wanted to root my contemporary dance. So I always say this, that COCD is surviving because there are a lot of these community works, because that brings the body out first, and then the form comes, and then the form is taking shape. But for me, it was very important to sensitize young people of these kind of things, because you often hear students saying that, now I'm getting bored of just the same step. So, or I'm not doing enough. What does that mean? When I think when they visit a community class like this, they kind of calm themselves down. They also enjoy the purity in which movements are happening, because I think young dancers sometimes forget with techniques, they're also losing their rawness and their authenticity, or the honesty of what they want to say.
There's a lot of virtuosity importance.
Yeah. So I think it's a great reminder every day for them to kind of just look at their bodies and just commit to that very profound experience, whatever that would mean to one. My community works really started because I wanted young dancers to take ownership of their education in contemporary dance. It never started because I wanted to do something for the city. It started because I wanted my young dancers to commit, to understand what it means to even commit, and still be grateful to the joy of getting up and dancing. I think it really happened because of that.
Well, I've known you for a few years, and I know you can be super emotional about
Mm.
things that that you really care about and people that you love. But apart from the Parkinson's dancers, and before I move on to the other communities that you engage with, you talk about performances of the Parkinson's group. Who do they perform for? Typically, who is the audience?
So the audience is a regular audience. We sell tickets and people have to come and watch their shows. It is also different festivals now. I think over a period of years, festivals have opened up to the idea of inclusion. So
In India.
in India, not a lot, but I think they're at least getting there. We've been performing once a year to a different festival every year. We were at the Natakala conference, we were at the Sindhu festival in Mumbai, which was very exciting because here is a dance space where there's an intervention of we going and saying, hey, this is also possible through a dance space. It is still performative. We still have this group of members who wanting to dance. So how do you look at the pedagogy of it? But it is limited, for sure. It is quite limited. And we are hoping that, of course, COCD and Avartan as two organizations put together performances and get people together. But I think there is a larger need of having more audience for this kind of a show. And one of the things I definitely share with the audience is don't come in because, oh, they're old and you feel sorry for them. I think after watching the show, we have felt sorry for ourselves, saying how much do we take for granted, and there's so much that we can do. I think that's a great reminder that all the performing PD members really give us every day. So yeah.
Have you ever considered working with people with dementia and Alzheimer's? Because that's also on the rise, rapidly on the rise.
Yes. So our Parkinson's group, the classes are quite inclusive. We have about 85% of Parkinson members in the class, and the 15% are anybody and everybody who's 60 plus. So we have people with dementia, we have Alzheimer's that has kicked in, we have people with hip replacements, knee replacements. As I said, we've had somebody with arthritis. The only thing is that the way an arthritis patient would move would be a little different than a Parkinson patient in the class for it to be effective. So the facilitator needs to just be aware of this inclusive group. The idea was also to make sure that the Parkinson participants don't feel that they're excluded. So they meet regular older people who probably have no disease at all. And the conversations are different. Nobody's talking about their doctor, nobody's talking about their medication, no physiotherapy, how was my sleep. Everybody's coming there because I want to do majja. I want to listen to a song, or they sing together. And I think that's what has kept the class going, really, that we've not made it so inclusive, so exclusive that people with Parkinson's only feel that only they are surrounded by the same symptoms, So that was also the joy. And I think when you have somebody next to you, you tend to push your body a little more. It's like having a good dancer next to you. You tend to leap more, or you tend to, sort of be more aware of your movements. It's really like that, and it works magically for them.
So tell us about some of the other community clusters you're working with. Sounds very exciting.
We have our dance in education program where we work with young kids in schools and young adults till college. The idea is really to look at dance as a personality building skill, because we also understand that not everybody wants to become a dancer. But dance can definitely allow you to have a personality that stands up, looks into the eyes, is articulate, and shares what he or she would like to share with the other person. One of the nicest things about learning any Indian classical form is it teaches you to listen. It's not a constant response. So even if you were to learn Kathak or Bharatanatyam, you'll have to listen to the Natvangam, you'll have to listen to the metronome, you'll have to know the rhythm. It's a great space to kind of bring the listening skills back into younger kids where there is only performance and they always want to do academically well, they want to do extracurriculars and this, that, and the other. So the dance in education program really works on those kind of qualities to make them compassionate citizens, if I may use that word. And then we have our senior citizens class, which runs in different slums. Again, working with people who have no Parkinson's but are 60 plus. And these are in different clusters in the city. So we have the Deepgraha Society that we work with right now, which is an NGO that we partner with. We have one project running in Tadiwala Road, which is a very volatile slum, and the other one, which is Ram Tekdi. Geographically, they're very, very different. So you have to also identify the population that works there. One of the most exciting things about our slums is we also have men who are rickshaw drivers, garbage pickers, who also come and join in, which has been a great achievement, I think, for men to be able to express through dance, and for women to feel that they're supported in that community of people. We have a senior citizens class, which is online. For women who are at home, who are retired, who probably would want to go back to an activity after retirement, but have no other disease. Probably they have diabetes or something of that sort. We started these online classes just to kind of give an access to what we do and what we have to share with other women. And then we have our work that we do with hospitality. So we work with hotels and their staff. So right from housekeeping to utility to managers to their ground staff to the owners, we try to kind of get them together, because it's, again, hospitality is such a thankless job, that how do you keep the team together? How do you talk about leadership? How do you talk about being compassionate in a heavy duty day? Like, for example, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. How do you, without shouting, work with each other and still find joy in it? But all of this is done through dancing. We have, there are then other limited projects that we do with workshops where we engage with design students at NID. We work with Sanskriti, we work with the film schools, so on and so forth. But everything is done keeping in mind dance as the center focus. We've never left that. And we've never left contemporary dance as a medium of expression that we teach.
Now, all this must take an enormous amount of not just organizational skills, but also resources. How do you fund this?
I we fund it through madness. I think right now
I understand it. I
right
understand
now
what that
it's
word
my
means.
madness that's keeping the things alive. But as the organization is taking shape of its own, we are also telling people that here are spaces that have created employment for regular dancers, apart from performance and apart from teaching. It is still a new phenomenon for people to understand rehab spaces, let's say for our Parkinson's work, which has not been funded for the last 16 years, and it is still offered as a free class. And along with that, I think our dance in education program is also one such activity where we find it very difficult to have a conversation, because they all want us to put up an annual day or a 15th August show. And we are like, but can we do something better? You know, can we make them thinkers and not a replica of one song that happens? So I think that has been a little difficult. So we've had personal donors. We've had restaurants like La Plaisir that kind of give us ₹1 per dish, which has been very exciting and supporting. We've had some organizations that have come on board, but it's just been for one financial year. So it doesn't really allow us to create a graph of progression, let's say, for the next 5 years, you know, because then you know what the support is and how you can grow along with it. But having said that, we've still managed to do a pan-India online class that happens thrice a week. We have a class running in Stuttgart, in Esslingen, in the south of Germany. We have things that are happening in the Bay Area. So I think even with limited resources, we've still managed to kind of show people that this is possible. There's consistency. All now we need is a little support. So I think, I hope somebody through this podcast sees it and gets inspired.
Well, I think at least there will be a broader awareness. With all the communities that you work with, you do something called Dance for Senior Citizens. And you have a very charming story that you told me recently that I want you to share now with our listeners and viewers.
So the charming story is, as we were in our community, which is an underprivileged area with senior citizens. So they basically do daily chores in somebody's homes, or they're going and picking garbage or whatever. And we found out that 3 of these women got their respective husbands married, because one couldn't conceive, one didn't want to have a family of her own, and the other one said, I'm not interested in him. So they just got them married. They still live next to them. They provide for the family and the husband and the new kids and whoever. But she has her own identity, which was so exciting when we talk about so much of feminism. And I said, here is a woman who's, who's living it. And while she
Incredible.
said it, she didn't even flick her eyelids. It was so normal for her. She said one of them got her own sister married to this man, saying, I thought my sister was a better fit for him. Got married. The kids also treat her like the mother. So she said, listen, I didn't have to go through all the delivery trouble. Now I have my kids and my grandkids and I'm still an Aji. So I thought that was very exciting. And what it has done is that it has given these kind of stories a space to be able to normalize and be shared with other people, saying, oh, this is also happening and it can also be accepted now, So that's been very, very exciting.
And it's all happened because of dance.
Yes.
As a connect.
We also realized it was after 3-4 years that these group of 35 women, for the first time, found out what her name is. Otherwise, they all would know each other through their surnames. So they would never know you as a Anita. They would always say Ratnam Bai Alia.
Oh, okay.
So it was only through this space that they got to know that, oh, her name is Anita, now she can be my friend, We take so much for granted. And these are women who've lived in the slums for 30 years, 40 years together. They walk hand in hand together to come to the dance class.
And they didn't
but
know
they didn't know each
names.
other's first names ever.
Wow.
Which was very fascinating.
Incredible. Because in India, we tend to become very informal and we'll call you Hrishikesh Bhai.
Yes.
Rather than Pawar Bhai.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that is really fascinating.
Yeah.
And to have these women, wow. Okay, now we have to share with our listeners and viewers the fabulous news. It's actually two-pronged. You have a fabulous award that you have been chosen for and an amazing fellowship. So will you please tell us about this? And congratulations, of course.
Thank you very much. I think the first is the Lucy Bowen Award for Choreography, presented by the Mark Morris Dance Group.
For inclusive choreography.
For inclusive choreography. So which basically has an award money of $12,000. Which allows me to do something with our Parkinsons group. As we speak, we are in between shooting a documentary that releases on the 20th of September, when we have Lucy Bowen herself coming to Pune, witnessing our group and witnessing all the work that we're doing. And then 2026, 27, this award gives us an opportunity to pack these wonderful stories in a form of documentary and take it to different festivals and different populations and different people, hopefully more dancers, so that they get inspired to kind of see dance in a fresh, with a fresh perspective. The other is the fellowship given by the Academy of the Arts, the Akademie der Kunst in Berlin, which is very, very special because the award is nominated by the committee members, so you cannot apply for it. Somebody nominates you because you've reached a certain stature in your performing arts. I think both these awards coming in simultaneously is also very emotional, because I've kept the performer in me alive and the creator in me alive, but at the same time I've kept the facilitator in me alive. So I think it's quite satisfying to know, okay, I can still balance both the things, and it's feeding off each other, The Academy Award in Berlin allows me to do a 3-month residency to create my own work, which will then premiere in April of 2026, which is also very exciting now.
In Berlin?
In Berlin.
Which we hope to see in India.
I hope so too.
And we're also looking forward to you bringing back the Prayatna Dance Film Festival,
yes,
which I think was an amazing initiative.
Thank you.
We need more of these kinds of dance films.
Thank you.
Because otherwise, because that's how we get to see how we are linked, I think. Those of us who live and create with our bodies, and the bodies that are continually aging and not doing today what it could do last week.
Yes.
So I think these are very important conversations. I've just had a wonderful time speaking to you, Hrishikesh. You're a great friend, and let's stay connected beyond dance. But thank you so much for being on this podcast, and thank you all for being an amazing audience. For those of you who are listening, I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. For those who are watching, please subscribe to our channel, and you will have many more conversations with passionate people like Hrishikesh Pawar, who are so engaged with dance, movement, and life. Thank you.